Joe DiGenova is a former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, and he joins us now. I just want to state at the outset, Joe, he lied, say the news anchors. He lied, and he deserves whatever's coming to him. Assess that claim, if you would.
He did not lie, and in fact, the FBI knew it. Let's remember what this is about. This was a pretextual crime created by the FBI and by Sally Yates, the acting attorney general. Remember, after the election, Hillary Clinton needed a reason why she lost. Enter Russian collusion. Part of that was to find somebody in the administration to frame for talking to the Russians. They found General Flynn. But in fact, all of General Flynn's conversations with the Russian ambassador and everybody else were legal. So why did the FBI approach him? They knew what he said. They knew it was legal. The answer is they wanted to frame him, and they succeeded. And he did not tell them false information. Some of it may have been paused, it may have been nuanced. He did not lie. And indeed, the agents who actual 302s are available said he didn't lie. And it's interesting that Mueller did not turn over the original 302s to Judge Sullivan today. He turned over an interview of Agent Strzok, which was done months later by Mueller's people. The answer is Michael Flynn was framed in order to get at Donald Trump. Sally Yates, James Comey, Peter Strzok, Andy McCabe all planned it. What you are watching play out in an American courtroom is one of the most disgraceful events in American criminal justice, and everybody on Mueller's team should be ashamed of themselves, and none of them should ever be allowed to go back into the Department of Justice.
And any attorney who advised Michael Flynn to plead guilty to this, rather than going public with the frame-up that was happening to him, ought to be, I think, disbarred. Let me ask you, though, what do you make of the reaction to it? I think a lot of people watching, even this channel, pretty well-informed news consumers, are surprised to learn that the crime here, the only crime here, arises from that interview, the lawyerless interview in the White House. That Mike Flynn was never charged with colluding with anybody, including the Turks. You've heard all the speculation about how he's working for Erdogan. He was never charged with any of that, and yet he's totally been destroyed as a man. His family's been crushed. They're bankrupt. They had to sell their house on the basis of that one crime. Why doesn't anybody on any other network say, wait a second, could that be slightly disproportionate?
Well, Tucker, the people on the other networks and the people at the FBI at that time in the Department of Justice wanted one thing. They wanted to find a way to destroy Donald Trump because he wasn't supposed to be elected. But he beat them. And once they were beaten, they got angry. And then they got vindictive. And then they got vindictive by using the criminal justice system, weaponizing it. And John Brennan at the CIA and James Clapper followed through on their promised threat to figure out a way to get the people that they didn't want elected in order to make up for the fact that Hillary Clinton, had lost. This has become one of the greatest scandals in the history of our country, and the media is ignoring it. And it is truly important that what you are doing by focusing on these stories continue to be done until there's a new attorney general and there can be a grand jury to find out who was it that leaked the conversation of Michael Flynn with the Russian ambassador. That was a crime. The leak to David Ignatius of the Washington Post exposing General Flynn's conversation with the Russian ambassador was a crime. And the question tonight is, why isn't that crime being investigated?
Because everyone in Washington is deeply invested in our failed foreign policy, and anybody who suggests changing the foreign policy that they're deeply invested in and get rich from gets crushed, as you know. Joe DiGenova, thank you.
Thank you.
So here now, Jonathan Turley, law professor at George Washington University, and Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Both are Fox News contributors, and both have followed this since day one. Byron, let me start with you. Your initial reaction when you read through these documents today?
Well, it clears up a couple of mysteries. We had seen in court papers released not too long ago about an August 22nd report on this, and we didn't know what it was. Now it turns out that Peter Strzok, the FBI agent who had interviewed Flynn back in January of 2017, was interviewed himself by the FBI in August, and he recalled some of those details. By the way, the original report that the FBI agents wrote about that interview, again on January 24, 2017, the original report on that was not released today. It's possible that the prosecutors gave it to the judge under seal. Probably a good idea if they did, but we didn't get to see it.
So what was not revealed, as you point out, is exactly what was said between those agents and Michael Flynn at the White House. So we still don't have a record of that, Jonathan Turley.
That's right. The record we have only gets worse. You know, with that clip that you played by Comey is quite unnerving. I mean, the most unnerving thing, other than what he's saying, is the thrilled reaction of the audience. I mean, here you have the FBI director who Republicans and Democrats called to be removed for his press conference during the Clinton campaign, saying that, you know what, I thought I could get away with just skipping all the protocols and rules and sending two guys over. And that really is the sort of epitaph of his entire time as a director. But it's amazing to me how really duplicitous it is. You know, he says, well, you know, if this was an organized administration, this was at the beginning of the administration, right? There was a White House counsel designee that you could speak to. There were lawyers you could speak to. And also, these filings indicate that Yates, who was the acting attorney general, was actually quite angry when Comey told her that he just sent two guys over.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of arrogance, you know, that sort of is laced throughout this. Catherine mentioned one line that sort of jumped out at me, that Peter Strzok talked about Michael Flynn as, you know, bright, but not profoundly sophisticated. I'm not sure what the meaning of that is or how that's relevant in terms of the information that was exchanged. And when I spoke with Trey Gowdy the other day about the meeting that's coming up, because they're going to get James Comey in front of their committee again on Monday, here's what he said.
It doesn't matter if everyone else concludes he did wrong. He knows better. So that's what it's like to interview an amnesiac with incredible hubris.
So James Comey didn't take too kindly to that. Here's what he tweeted. And I was worried this wouldn't be a dignified, open-minded search for the truth, which led to another tweet, which is the way things go these days, from Congressman Gowdy, who said, Director Comey, I was disappointed in what you didn't remember, but even more disappointed in what you never knew. I will see you on Monday. Byron.
You know, I think the reason this case keeps getting so much attention is it's just, there's something weird going on here. December 2016 is this conversation between Flynn and the Russian ambassador. Mid-January, there's a leak about it, which itself is a big crime. There's a leak about it. Flynn denies it. And on January 24, the FBI agents come to interview him. We learned today they did not think he was lying. In March, James Comey goes to Capitol Hill and he tells lawmakers that the agents didn't think Flynn was lying and that they shouldn't expect any sort of charges against Flynn. In May, Comey is fired. The new special counsel, Robert Mueller, comes in. In August, all of a sudden there's a new report about this January interview. And then on December 1st, Flynn pleads guilty to lying. Something is going on that we don't know about, and we still need to find out.
And it's interesting to note, I remember, you know, in one of the only statements that General Flynn made after this started to unfold, he said, I have a story to tell. And when that time comes, I will tell it. Jonathan Turley. Your thoughts on that, and also on the fact that I'm not sure why there's this effort towards, you know, mitigation when the recommendation is for 0 time in jail.
Yeah, if he wasn't cooperating, he would probably still get 0 time. I mean, he's a first offender. This runs from 0 to 6 months. It's doubtful that he would get any jail time in any circumstance. Now, I think we have to be a little cautious with General Flynn. We don't know about some of the other things investigated. He had some very curious ties in these Turkish discussions, and there's been a lot of suggestions of rather sort of seedy types of plans that went on. We don't know the truth or falsity of those facts, but there's a lot more to be told. But what we do know is that for some reason, they were hunting for Flynn. You know, they say quite clearly, we intentionally didn't remind him that he's got to be careful in what he says to us. It can be a crime, which they did with other witnesses. They skipped the protocols and went directly to him, circumventing counsel in the White House. And then when he finally did say something that they thought was not accurate, they didn't raise it. They just repeated it. They didn't correct it. And so the question is, why would they be hunting for Flynn at this point? That's what's not explained in any of these filings.
Well, we know that they had picked up on this intercept, that he was discussing things with Kislyak, and then they discovered that there was an inconsistency in what he was saying publicly about that.
But even there, you know, the fascinating thing in what we saw today is Flynn tells the agents, well, you already know what I said to the ambassador, which seems to be a referral to the fact that he knew that he was being surveilled, or it was a wiretap on that phone. So that begs the question again, did he really intentionally lie when he assumed that everything that he was saying was being listened to by the FBI?
But there was this question of why did the FBI go over and question Flynn? And one of the things we've learned in these court filings is that they did indeed suspect him of violating the Logan Act, which we've all learned about, which is a law that has never